It's a new year, so it's time for my yearly cEDH metagame update video. In this video, we're gonna be taking a look at the best performing commanders, a commander tier list, but also the best performing players, a player leaderboard. So let's start with the commanders. Now I got a request that I should have a easier list to look at, the names and every single individual win rate that commander have individually got. So you can see here at the top, Crom Tev is the current best performing commander at 27 point. I'm gonna say 28. Then you have Blue Farm, Tymna Crom, Malcolm and Tana. I use shortcuts here, so Rogsai, Krark, Sakashima, and then Sisei. And then you have something here at the bottom. Oh well, Edgar Markov and Mystics Igmagnus has the same win rate here. But I do have something of a visualization as well in Commander Circle pictures, their face art, so to say. So here we have commanders. Well, I would like to say that there are more commanders on this current list that you're looking at right now. Too few games. Let me show you what I mean. Here is Oscar Rubbish Reclaimer with a 25.71 average win rate, which is actually really good. But he only has 7 entries into tournaments. You can see that total dex 7, which means that the sample size isn't enough. So we can't really trust that win rate. And all the commanders you're looking at right now are commanders with just too few games. So we can't place them on a leaderboard. Next up we have commanders with a 14% or lower average win rate, and these are basically the ones that we don't recommend that you bring into tournaments. They aren't really performing that good. Then we have these commanders that have a 15% or a little bit higher. By the way, the list is actually longer. I just didn't have enough space to put things in here. But you're getting a pretty good picture of where some of these commanders are placing. By the way, that's Kinnan. From a currently 362 entries into various tournaments, Kinnan from various different players have achieved a 21.80 average win rate. It's a very popular commander, but it's not performing as good as some of the other options. Then we get into B tier. These are commanders that are performing quite okay. They have a win rate of 22.5 up to 25. So here we have our Armix and Crom. Atraxa. Atraxa has usually been really good. She's actually been dropping a bit. We have Tana and Tymna, Bloodpod. We have Dargo, Thrasius, Inala, Jeskai, Tymna, Kenrith, Tivit, Thrasius and Smasher, Tevesh and Thrasius, Tayam, Rocco, Nayela and Malcolm and Tymna. Here we have Nayela on 305 decks that have entered into tournaments, and an average win rate among that 23.23. That takes us to A tier, which is only Sisei, or I should actually explain something. A tier are all commanders with an average win rate of 25 and higher. The thing is, they aren't that many, because my S tier are the 5 highest win rate performing commanders. So Sisei would be among here, except that there are 5 other commanders that have a better average win rate compared to Sisei. So the 5 best commanders are, as I mentioned before, Tymna and Crom, Krark and Sakashima, Tevesh and Crom. Tevesh and Crom were actually the best performing currently on 28 somewhat. And then you have Malcolm and Tana, and then Rogsai. So if we begin by looking at Sisei, she has on point 25 average win rate, which means that if she just lose one more game, she's gonna drop down to B tier. I think Sisei is gonna bounce around B tier, A tier, and maybe sometime go into S tier, but she's gonna run around somewhere like A and B on average. This is Malcolm, Tana, the Tropical Malcolm with the Glinthorn. They don't have that many games, so I have a feeling that they could drop. If more players are playing these commanders, the win rate could decrease a tiny bit. Here we have Crom and Tevesh, and I think I'm gonna say the same thing. 84 games or 84 decks and entries currently, so there's a chance that this win rate could also drop once more players are picking it up. Blue Farm though, Tymna and Crom are staying strong. This is the most popular commander pair ever. They have a total of 544 tournament entries with an average win rate of 26.10. So even though a really huge population of players are playing these commanders, they're still getting a pretty good win rate. And this is actually something I would like to mention if we go back to Kinnan, that also have a very high popularity vote, so to say, but the big portions of players, including both bad and good players, are making the win rate a little bit less compared to Blue Farm. So my takeaway here is that if you give the Kinnan deck and the Blue Farm deck to a bunch of bad players and unexperienced players, Blue Farm will on average perform a little bit better compared to Kinnan. Here we have Rogsai, also a very huge popularity vote here, and it's getting a pretty good result even though a huge portion of potentially unexperienced and bad players are picking up the Grixis commander pair here, an average win rate of 25.84. And then Krark Sakashima sitting on an average win rate of 25.32. And that basically concludes the list of the best commanders so far. However, we have some, well, honorable mentions and things we could look into. We have Francisco Foul Marauder that just is a very new commander, so we can't really say much about it. Like, it's been performing and showcasing some really good results, like from these two deck entries with Francisco and Ishai, it's pretty good. Then you have Crom and Francisco. Then you have Malcolm and Francisco. And the most popular so far, Francisco and Frasius on 11 tournament entries and an average win rate of 26. So the bird is showcasing some really interesting potential, and we will see over time if that win rate stays, drops, or maybe increase. Probably not increase. I think it's potentially could decrease a tiny bit, but stay on a pretty good result. Another commander is Muldrota that is sitting on 4 tournament entries, not that many, and an average win rate of 30. So we can't say anything from this. This could be random luck or just that you had some other strange situations that appeared in your tournament that gave you a pretty good result. But it's showcasing that maybe Muldrota has something to offer inside this format. Who knows? More games will tell the truth. We have started to calculate some data and gotten enough results to say something about Narset. She's sitting on 20.66, which is like, okay, she works out. She's a commander that can win games now and then. Sauron the Dark Lord is sitting on a very similar average win rate, 20.13. Shorkai started kinda strong, but then started to drop. Shorkai is now sitting on 16.50. The new Monored Slicer, Hired Muscle, is struggling on 17.31. So Monored aggro doesn't seem to work out that well. Tyam have been among the top. You can see there minus 1.62 on the average win rate, so it's been dropping a tiny bit, but it's staying kinda strong in general. We now have a really high amount of games on Talion, 74 total tournament entries. This is a new card, but still, as you can see, 17.70 means that Talion is somewhat struggling, I would actually argue. I think that Talion is something of a control mid-range commander that is looking to like heuristic study in the command zone, draw into counter spells and sit to control your opponents. And yeah, that kind of game plan isn't really working out in general, and also Demir is somewhat lacking control power. Also, by the way, it's a little bit tricky to actually win the game with the fastest consult on this one, because you empty your library, and if someone just cast the spell that Talion has on it, you can force Talion to draw a card. That ability, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card, is not a May. So you could accidentally die on the moment you're going for Fastest Oracle, making it tricky for Talion to actually operate. So you have a really good mid-range control plan, but mid-range control isn't really working out in the current metagame, and therefore Talion is struggling, and the combo that she's going for is problematic with this commander as well. Vargot's Blood Sky Sire has been proven, showcasing some really interesting results. Now only 13 tournament entries so far, so we don't have enough sample size on this commander, but it's showcasing a potential, and I'm looking forward to see more players picking this up and bringing it into tournaments. This might be potentially the best mono black commander, who knows? Currently Krick is holding the best mono black commander position because once again Vargov just has too few games, so we can't claim Vargov of being the best commander, so to say. But Krick is sitting on 18 average win rate from 81 tournament entries, so we just need more Vargov games to see where it lands. Rocco has been showcasing some really promising results. It currently has 105 tournament entries and the win rate is climbing upwards. Venota is struggling, she doesn't really get somewhere. She has a tournament game every now and then, like every tournament including 100 players usually contain 1 or 2 Venota, but the win rate just doesn't seem to get somewhere. It's staying rather low on 15. Once again, showcasing that stacks and control isn't really working out, it's turbo combo for the win, more or less. Here's another commander I would like to showcase and highlight. It's kinda new, it's been seeing some developments and I think this one deserves its own deck tech video. Lucas and Will, which is basically another version of Sans Green, is showcasing some really cool potential. Now the total decks are only 20, so it's a little bit too low to really say that we can say the win rate is statistically significant. In other words, we can't trust the win rate, so it's entering into the section of just too few games. But it's showcasing some potential and I'm looking forward to see more results from it. Those were the commanders I would like to highlight. You can see all of them here on this list, but if you have any questions regarding this section of this video, feel free to drop a comment and I will do my very best to answer your question regarding the commander statistics and the commander win rates in general. Let's proceed and look at the best players inside this game. So most recently we had Freedom Waffle at the helm being the best player in the game. But we have a new champion, Jorman Antigua, which is sitting on an amazing 46.58 average win rate. You see the plus 24.79 up there, that's much how better win rate he has against the total average of all players. He has a little bit fewer games compared to Freedom Waffle that is sitting on 18 total tournament entries, so he's just recently gotten onto the list more or less. He actually was on the list the previous time I made this video. I just made a typo which made him not appear, but now he is properly on the list. And here is the total list. We have actually increased from 30 to 36 unique players that have achieved a better win rate than the total average and have entered into 10 different unique tournaments. The criteria of being on this list is that you have to play 10 tournaments, because if you just play one, it doesn't really say that much about you. You need to play 10, but then you also need to have a better win rate compared to the total average. Like there's a lot of players that haven't performed greatly, they have entered into a lot of tournaments, but their win rate is somewhere around 15 to 18. And from top to bottom we have Jorman Antigua, this is Freedom Waffle, Ian, Comedian, Eric Metter, Sane, who's actually increased his win rate a tiny bit, Jacob, Mimo, and then yeah, you can see going around the list. If you're on the list, huge congratulations. But I would like to point something out here, that if you're looking around on this chart, looking at the average win rate people are getting, it's on average higher compared to the average among commanders. For example, here you have Jorman Antigua on 46.58 on the highest, and if you look here on Crom Tev, 27.80. So the takeaway here is that player skill matters more compared to your deck construction decisions. Now this video isn't trying to answer what is the correct player skill to practice on that will make you into a good cEDH player. That's for another video. But if you have any suggestions or beliefs what makes you into a good cEDH player, feel free to leave a comment. And it is something I'm going to deep into in the future. One thing the video is going to talk about a little bit more though is the deck construction decisions. I've already mentioned that it's not a huge impact, so to say, but if you look at the commander tier list, more or less, you can see that some of the stuff here aren't recommended while other things are recommended. And as a quick reminder to what I've already said, in general, Turbo Combo seems to be doing a good job where stacks and control are somewhat struggling a little bit more. I would like to showcase this one. I've showcased this before in a video where I talked about how many counterspells you should play. And the takeaway here was that you should play around somewhere between 10 to 15, maybe 12. This is the average win rate you're getting, this is the amount of counterspells, and this is the density of how many you can see. So here you have one deck that entered and got 100% wins on somewhere around 7 counterspells, and here you have 462 decks that have lost every single game, that's 0 win rate, and they're basically playing somewhere around 12 counterspells. But you see a huge concentration around here, where you're getting a pretty good result, a pretty good aim, where you're playing somewhere around 10 to 15 counterspells. This graph showcases a little bit better in detail. Here you once again have the average win rate, and here you have the amount of counterspells. And here is the blue dot that is highest on this, highest win rate, very close to 24, and it's playing somewhere around 11 counterspells. And once you're starting to increase the amount of counterspells like to 20, you're getting a lower average win rate. And when you're playing a very low amount of counterspells, you're getting a very low average win rate. So even though it's recommended to play somewhat of a turbo game plan, it's still recommended to have some control magic inside your deck. Like, not all in turbo, somewhere in between. But I will dig more into that in future videos, as well as update this continuously throughout the year, showcasing the Commander tier list and showcasing great performing players. But also trying to answer the questions, what are the good skills we should practice on in trying to become better at this game? What are the important skills to have that makes you win competitive Commander games? And then deck texts and such as usual. I'm happy to be back, it's 2024, and we have lots of cool stuff to do. See you soon!